It's in the drawer. Okay. I didn't take it off on purpose. I was leaving.
Anyway, you should know I do have a backup, so.
Yeah, I have 2 in the drawer.
Oh, I have 3 at my home, so. You just have to put one of them back on.
He's going to play. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaranhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaranhari Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jai Vishtabad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tadashishimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tadashishimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad-gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 18th day of October 2017 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 8 entitled Attaining the Supreme. We are on page 360 and verse number 16. Is it right, Marcy? Okay. Abrahma Bhuvana Loka. Time out. Bottom of the left-hand page. Oh. Let's start again. Brahma bhuvana loka punaravartinojuna mamupecha tukunteya punarjanmana vidyate. 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 Parashakti. Brahma bhuvana loka punaravartinojuna mamupecha tukunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Brahma bhuvana loka punaravartinojuna mamupecha tukunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Brahma bhuvana loka punaravartinojuna mamupecha tukunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Brahma bhuvanat, up to the Brahmaloka planet. Lokaha, the planetary systems. Punaha, again. Avartinaha, returning. Arjuna, O Arjun. Mam, unto me. Upecha, arriving. To, but. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Punaha, janma, rebirth. Na, never. Vidyate, takes place. Translation. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. Purport. All kinds of yogis, karma, jnana, hatha, etc., eventually have to attain devotional perfection in bhakti yoga or Krishna consciousness before they can go to Krishna's transcendental abode and never return. Those who attain the highest material planets, the planets of the demigods, are again subjected to repeated birth and death. As persons on earth are elevated to higher planets, people on higher planets such as Brahmaloka, Chandraloka, and Indraloka fall down to earth. The practice of sacrifice called Panchagni Vidya, recommended in the Chandogya Upanishad, enables one to achieve Brahmaloka. But if on Brahmaloka one does not cultivate Krishna consciousness, then he must return to earth. Those who progress in Krishna consciousness on the higher planets are gradually elevated to higher and higher planets, and at the time of universal devastation are transferred to the eternal spiritual kingdom. Baladev Vidyabhushan, in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, quotes this verse, Brahmana sahate sarve samprapte patisanchare padasyante kritatmana bhavishanti padam padam. When there is devastation of this material universe, Brahma and his devotees who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness are all transferred to the spiritual universe and to specific spiritual planets according to their desires. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So here, Krishna is In the last two verses, he's described that this world is a world of misery, dukkhalayam, ashashvatam, and is temporary in the previous verse. But one who attains to Krishna, to me, he says, is a Mahatma and does not attain perfection and has attained the supreme goal, Paramam Gatim. And in this present verse, Krishna is describing that every planet is a planet of return. Now, it doesn't mean that from every planet, everyone must be in the bound or the bindings of birth and death, because some are devotees. Brahma, our Brahma, is certainly going back to Godhead. And this purport, by the way, has been, the translation of that verse in the purport is not exactly accurate. We've checked it and it's been fixed. So it's not that Brahma and his devotees, it's Brahma and the devotees of Krishna who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness are all transferred. But some don't come on. That's why it says the place of Brahmaloka is also a place of return. You understand? Just like on this earth, those who are pure devotees are not coming back again. Right? Most people are. But there's a few, hopefully, who will go back to Godhead. So that's what's being explained here in this verse, quoted in the purport. So this verse is often quoted as this is what the character of the material world is all about. It's a place of return. We've learned this from the first verse of Krishna's instruction. That we've been transmigrating even in this one body to different bodies, all of us slowly, we don't recognize the difference, but if we see an old picture, you say, whoa, I've really changed. Do any of you have any little baby pictures? I have like a 2 or 3. Not baby pictures, but when I'm there with my father, we're on a camping trip, I'm about 3, no, maybe 5. I've got a little bat, a little skinny bat. And I'm as skinny as the bat. That's me. No, it's not really me. But it's the body I had at that time. And, you know, it's not just the gross body, the subtle body is completely different also. So the body, the gross body is not me, the subtle body is not me, that's the harder part to understand. But the soul, the knower, is myself. And if we don't achieve perfection in this life, then we have to come back to try it again. Now, devotees are very fortunate because they alone can carry something from one birth to the next. And the achievements they have in devotional service is carried forward. Whereas everything material is taken away. You can remember this phrase, Mrityu sarva haras chaham. Krishna says in the 10th chapter, as death, I take everything away at the time of death. Mrityu sarva haras chaham. So Prabhupada, I heard on a tape, he says, everybody sees Krishna, everybody sees God, but the materialists see him as death, and the devotees see him as Shyamasundar. So you can take your choice, which one you will see God. God means you're all powerful, you completely subdue you. Certainly death is there. So any questions on this verse? How not to come back by attaining Krishna. So now Krishna then talks about, because he mentioned Brahma, and then he starts talking about the length of the universe. Text 17. Sahasra yuga paryantam aharyad brahmano viduhu ratrim yuga sahasrantam teho ratra vido janaha. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day. And such also is the duration of his night. Purport. The duration of the material universe is limited. It is manifested in cycles of kalpas. A kalpa is a day of Brahma. And one day of Brahma consists of 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas or ages, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. The cycle of Satya is characterized by virtue, wisdom, and religion, there being practically no ignorance and vice. And the yuga lasts 1,728,000 years. In the Treta Yuga, vice is introduced, and this yuga lasts 1,296,000 years. In the Dwapara Yuga, there is an even greater decline in virtue and religion, vice increasing, and this Yuga lasts 864,000 years. And finally, in Kali Yuga, the Yuga we have now been experiencing over the past 5,000 years, there is an abundance of strife, ignorance, irreligion, and vice, true virtue being practically non-existent, and this Yuga lasts 432,000 years. Now one note here, having seen these figures for many years, these are all multiples of 432,000. 2 times 432,000 is 864, 3 is 1 like that. So the whole addition is here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, as I learned in 2nd grade, equals 10. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. So 10 times 432,000 is 4,320,000, and that's the length of the whole cycle of yugas. And 1,000 of those makes Brahma's one day. Now in Prabhupada's language, remember, when you're listening or you're reading, a day is 12 hours. So then you have another day, so the whole 24 hours of Brahma is 8,640,000,000 years, when you multiply it all out. That's just one day. Long lifetime. In the Kali Yuga, vice increases to such a point that at the termination of the Yuga, the Supreme Lord himself appears as the Kalki avatar, vanquishes the demons, saves his devotees, and commences another Satya Yuga. Then the process is set rolling again. These 4 yugas, rotating 1,000 times, comprise one day of Brahma, and the same number comprises night. 12 hours, 12 hours. Brahma lives 100 of such years and then dies. These 100 years, by Earth calculations, total 311,040,000,000,000 Earth years. By these calculations, the life of Brahma seems fantastic and interminable. But from the viewpoint of eternity, it is as brief as a lightning flash. In the causal ocean, there are innumerable Brahmas rising and disappearing like bubbles in the Atlantic. Brahma and his creation are all part of the material universe, and therefore they are in constant flux. In the material universe, not even Brahma is free from the process of birth, old age, disease, and death. Brahma, however, is directly engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord in the management of this universe. Therefore, he at once attains liberation. Elevated sannyasis are promoted to Brahma's particular planet, Brahmaloka, which is the highest planet in the material universe, and which survives all the heavenly planets in the upper strata of the planetary system. But in due course, Brahma and all the inhabitants of Brahmaloka are subject to death according to the law of material nature. So this is all quite fantastic according to the calculations of the material scientists. They have their own way of investigation through all of these telescopes, and every so often they come up with these amazing new things. It was just some creation of a big black hole that they saw in some galaxy, and there was I didn't read the story, I saw the headline that some galaxy exploded and created a whole bunch of gold and all this. So you have to figure out what to believe, and we have chosen to believe the Bhagavad Gita. But it is quite amazing, the lengths of time. This is one of the things that is the first lesson, really, when you think about it. If you believe that your life is just compressed within your birth and your death of this body, then your calculation of what's important, what's interesting, what to strive for, what to inquire after, is bound by the interests of the body. I'm not going to live again. I didn't live before, So whatever I can gather, whatever I can make happen in this lifetime, that's the whole thing. So that leads to kind of a hedonistic philosophy. In fact, I remember, only maybe some of us will remember. You remember the old slogan? This is from the 60s, 70s. It was a beer commercial. Yes. And the implication is, YOLO. You only live once, so grab all the gusto you can drink our beer. So why not? If you really are going around only once. But the beginning of Krishna's instruction is, no, you don't go around only once. And you're a fool to calculate all the benefits on the basis of the body. That was what Arjuna was doing. You see? So it's all very, very instructive. And as soon as we enter into that realm of the spirit, then we can't really tell what the reality is. I can't see your Atma, you can't see my Atma. You know, it's completely beyond the realm, it's transcendental. So therefore we have to rely on the words of the Shastra and the words of the Guru, realized souls, to tell us about this all-important information. This is really what, Prabhupada's revolution is. Because this whole calculation is beyond our ability to know. But it's wonderful really to realize that we've been living in this world, 10, 20, 30, 40 years or more, and it works perfectly, much better really than that so-called outside world. It's all very consistent, Nobody is said, oh, why did I waste all that time? And so some people may fall into ignorance and do that. But devotees think, oh, how many difficulties, how many miseries have I been saved from? Just on the material plane. What to speak of opening up the doors to liberation, the doors to the spiritual world? What was that? The doors of perception. So this is, Krishna is laying it out here. Now we have a choice. Are we going to believe this? We're going to believe our eyes, our own relative minds, or the scientists, so-called. So we choose to believe the Bhagavad Gita and Srila Prabhupada, and therefore we can benefit from the Bhagavad Gita reading. So this, these calculations, you find them throughout the Srila Prabhupada's writings in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a whole chapter in the 3rd canto. I don't think we read it yet. Calculation of time from the atom. We're still in chapter 6 in the morning, I believe. No, I'm sorry. That was in, amazingly, we're practicing the same place in Tucson. 3rd canto, chapter 5. And now we're in the 3rd canto, chapter 26. But it's the idea is that this changes our whole perspective in life. These calculations. Now, one interesting thing about it is the malleability of time. Anyone who gets older, most people do, they find that time speeds up. The sense of your time speeds up. It just seems to be like rolling down a hill or something. When you're very young, if you can recall, from 6 to 7 is an eternity. And that's why I say, I'm not 6. I'm 6 1/4. I'm 6 1/2. You're only 6. And the growth is spurting, so you're noticeably bigger. But it's just the percentage of time that you've lived determines what each interval is. One year is 1/6 of your whole lifetime is passing. Whereas when you're 45, it's 1/45 of your lifetime. So that seems to be, But time can practically be infinitely malleable. The whole story of Brahma, when he took the calves and the calves and boys away, hid them away for a split second of his time, a couple of moments. And really when you calculate it out, it would have been a very tiny half a second. But it was a whole year on earth. And so Pariksit wanted to know, well, why didn't they? Because Shukadev said they didn't speak about it. Usually when Krishna would kill a demon, they would be singing, all the boys would be singing about it as they enter into the village at the end of the day. And all of the elders and the gopis, they would be, transfixed to hear Krishna's latest adventure. But they didn't say a word for a whole year. And of course, Aghasura is out there, 8-mile long cobra, not cobra, I'm sorry. What's the one that swallows you? Python. And just dried up, somehow nobody noticed it. And so, because it wasn't really the boys, it was Krishna, and he decided not to say anything. So after a whole year of our time, Brahma comes back and he says, well, what happened? I mean, I thought I hid them away. And the same thing happened with, who was it? Muchukunda. Muchukunda was sleeping, and his amazement was that everything had shrunk. You remember that? Because everything is bigger size in these. That's another thing that shrinks. And was Katvanga, Maharaj Katvanga. Remember, he was fighting in the heavenly planets, and then he wanted to go back to his family, and they laughed. He said, "They're all gone. You're up in these higher planets, and you're on our time. But like ages have gone by, and nobody even knows their names anymore. Your wife and your whole family is gone. So that's different planets, different. The time passes differently. Now in the Goloka Vrindavan, there's no time. There's no past. There's no future. What is that verse? Sayatrak chirabdi swavadi sarabibhyastu mahan namesharak yoba vajadini hiyatravi samayak. Second line says, in that realm of Goloka Vrindavan, not even half a moment passes away. There's no change there. So Prabhupada explained in his famous Crow and Tal letter, explaining the fall of the jiva, that really it's just like falling asleep. We're dreaming. We want to enjoy separately from Krishna. So the living entity is put into the material energy, which means that they're kind of just slumbering there and dreaming all of these different lifetimes. And it seems like lifetimes of Brahma, so many different species, so many different lives. It's all like a dream. And when we finally wake up and our consciousness is again pure and Krishna conscious, it's just like we were asleep for a split second after all those millions of lifetimes. So what is this time? Time is a manifestation of Krishna, but it also can be withdrawn and we can live in the eternal present. So that's an interesting factor here. Yes?
Sometimes I get confused because we remember that the Maya so we say that this world is a dream.
Yeah.
We don't want to think like that at the same time. The dream theory makes sense that we were in the spiritual world where the reality is we had some dream about being Krishna and we were here.
Well, here's how the phrase is Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Remember that? Brahma Satyam Jagan. So Mithya means completely false, which means it doesn't exist. The Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy is that no, the material energy is real. Krishna says, Daiviyesha Gunami Mama Maya, that it's my Maya, it's real. But your understanding of what it is false. We're thinking that this is that this is us, that the body is us. We're thinking that this world is for our enjoyment and we can dominate it. And that's what is false. The energy itself is real, although temporary, but it's not what we think it is. Remember that? I think I've told you this before. There's one verse that's repeated 5 times in the Bhagavatam. It's worth remembering it. So Krishna speaks it twice in the Gita. It's there in Kapila Dev's teachings, I believe, in 4th canto also, and one more place. So that exactly addresses your question. The verse goes like this: Arte yavidyamane pi sangshatir nanavartate dhyayato vishayanasya swapne anartagamo yatha. Which means that samsriti are the sufferings of our life in this material world, and also the corresponding pleasures. The pleasures which comes with suffering. That's called samsara, and it produces birth, old age, disease, and death. That's commonly understood. So these sufferings, the samsara, doesn't really exist. In truth, it doesn't exist. But for one who's meditating in the objects of the senses, dhyayado vishayan, for the idea of enjoying here, those sufferings do not cease, just as the sufferings in a nightmare don't cease until you wake up. Right? When you wake up from a nightmare, the common phrase is, well, it was all just a dream. Right? Saying, well, that wasn't really real. Now I'm in my real life, thank God. Now I can go to work and go slave away, So, but the thing is, as Prabhupada explains also, where did you read that? The daydream and the night dream. That our day life, ordinary life, is also a dream. It's just a little longer. It's not what we think it is. We're not who we think we are. That's dreaming. You're in a world of illusion because you're completely ignoring the underlying reality of that world, which is Krishna. So that's what is dreamlike about it. It's not unreal in the ultimate sense because it's Krishna's material energy. But our sense of enjoyment, certainly our identity, that's false. a sense of identifying with this material body and everything related with it. You know, it's to put ourselves, I mean, to put yourself in the situation, because we've all been there, of identifying with this whole thing, and that's all there is for people in illusion, is that this is reality, and they keep getting frustrated trying to manipulate it and make it happen, make it work for them, and you know, it's constant things beyond their control that are making their life miserable. You know, these adibhautik, atmic, adidaivic miseries. They're beyond your control. And so we're frustrated and angry and depressed, you know, and we try harder to make it controlled and bring it under control. All of this technology and everything is meant to control nature, you know. But nature always has the last, always wins. You know. She's very patient. Very patient. In the end, it all just gets burned up and drowned in, you know, the whole annihilation. And we, each of us have our own little personal apocalypse, you know, called death, where everything that we thought was important and all attempts to stay here and get back to normal don't work anymore. And it's just the end. But devotees know, no, it's not. No, I mean, the first lesson of Gita is that death is an illusion. What Krishna says is just like taking a coat off. But who can really face it with that equanimity but devotees, who really are convinced that they're not the body and are acting like that. So that's where the unrealness comes in. That's why this verse is there. The sufferings that we go through are really like the sufferings in a dream. And they can be mitigated just by waking up to Krishna consciousness. They can't be mitigated by some material solution. That's the big illusion. Yeah. And that just produces more misery. Dukkaushadam tadapi dukkam. The remedies for the misery cause more misery. Sometimes I'm waiting in the laundromat, and all right, I'm leafing through this magazine. So they have an ad for some new pharmaceutical, you know, that's supposed to mitigate your depression or your rheumatoid arthritis or something, you know. You turn the page, and there's one page of ad with all the idyllic stuff, and then there's 2 pages of side effects. Horrendous side effects. Stop the medication if you find that you're paralyzed or something. I mean, it's that bad, you know. Consult your physician. I mean, it's really like that. And after all of that, you know, then they end with, and you know, maybe see if ciprofloxacin is for you. Ask your doctor. You know, they've got this whole thing of, you know, well, look, doc, you know, maybe this will work, you know, because I know. What'll work is to get rid of the material body altogether. Yeah.
I have a question regarding, is there a relationship between Kali Yuga and the demigod Kali?
Not really. Because it's a similar, yeah, it's a different spelling. Kali versus Kali. See, Kali Yuga. Yeah, those long vowels make it a whole different word. Yeah, Kali. I'm not sure what Kali means. Everything means something. But Kali means strife and fighting together. Argument. You going to say something? Yes, yeah.
The only difference is a diacritic.
But that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
In the meaning. Yeah. Just like, you know, Vasudev and Vasudev, you know, often, you know, got to learn to say Vasudev is the father, Vasudev is the son. Yeah, those diacritics make a big difference. All right, let's go on. One more. 18. Avyaktad vaktaya sarva prabhavantya haragame ratyagame paliyante tatvaivavyakta sangake. At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state. And therefore, when the night falls, at the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state. And thereafter, when the night falls, they are merged into the unmanifest again. So, you ever hear of this thing called ex nihilo? Ex nihilo means creation from nothing. You know? That's more or less the theory, the Big Bang Theory. When you get down to it, you know, it's just a black hole, and then it's, you know, creates the whole universe. Or everything is very compact into like atomic size, and it blows up. It's crazy. But it really does say avyakta vyaktaya, from the unmanifest, invisible, comes the vaktya, the manifest living entities. Because Krishna's energy is unmanifest, it's kept within him before the creation, and then it becomes manifest. So, anyway, there's no purport, we'll go on. Bhutagrama sevayam bhutva bhutva paliyate ratyagameva shakparta prabhavatya haragame. Again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being. And with the arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated. Purport. The less intelligent who try to remain within this material world may be elevated to higher planets, and then again must come down to this planet Earth. During the daytime of Brahma, they can exhibit their activities on higher and lower planets within this material world. But at the coming of Brahma's night, they are all annihilated. In the day they receive various bodies for material activities, and at night they no longer have bodies but remain compact in the body of Vishnu. Then again they are manifest at the arrival of Brahma's day. Bhutva bhutva praliyate. During the day they become manifest, and at night they are annihilated again. Ultimately, when Brahma's life is finished, they are all annihilated and remain unmanifest for millions and millions of years, and when Brahma is born again in another millennium, they are again manifest. In this way, they are captivated by the spell of the material world. But those intelligent persons who take to Krishna consciousness use the human life fully in the devotional service of the Lord, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thus they transfer themselves, even in this life, to the spiritual planet of Krishna and become eternally blissful there, not being subject to such rebirths. Now it's interesting there's kind of a little mystery. They transfer themselves even in this life. Now one could take that to mean even at the end of this life. But the fact of the matter is that Goloka Vrindavan is all pervading. This is part of the paradox of Chintya, is that we understand, okay, you know, to get to Goloka Vrindavan, we got to break out of the coverings of this universe. There's a big coverings. The universe is said to be 4 billion miles wide, which is the scientists would scoff at, but let's take that figure. So then there's these coverings of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. And each one of them, the first one is earth, and that itself is 10 times wider than the diameter of the universe. So that's 40 billion miles. Water is 400 billion. Air is 400 billion. What did I get? 40 billion, 400 billion. And then 4 trillion. So you're getting, you know, everything is getting much, 40 billion, and then 400 billion, then it is 4 trillion, just 10 times more. And you can see how it gets, you know, exponentially bigger. So we're in this, I mean, relatively speaking, we're in a tiny little space in the middle of this huge golf ball, or whatever you want to think of it. And all the universes are like that. So how are we going to get to Goloka Vrindavan? Well, the answer is Goloka Vrindavan is so subtle and spiritual that it's all pervading, even though we understand it's far above, far above, far above. But it's really a question of the exaltation of your consciousness to that state. And that's why Prabhupada is hinting at, even in this life, one can transfer oneself to the spiritual planet. And we understand from other sources that the great devotees, they live on these two planes. They're active in the material world here, but at the same time, within their heart, they're really living in Goloka Vrindavan. They're with Krishna in the spiritual world, serving in their specific, custom-made way with Krishna. So that's like, talk about inconceivable, that's inconceivable. But that's the nature of spirit. But when you get back down to matter, you can see the millions of years and millions of miles, and the whole thing is very frustrating. And you know, to contemplate again and again and again, coming back to this world without any inkling of Krishna consciousness. It's really a distasteful idea. We should strive not to come back. It's again and again in the Bhagavad Gita. You read that. Come to me and you don't have to come back. All right, we'll save the next verse, which is often quoted by Prabhupada for Monday. But these next two verses he would often quote about the difference between the material and the spiritual world. Yeah. I'm sorry? Oh, Monday. I'm sorry. Okay, that's Tuesday then. Yeah. All right, so we'll resume there. 8:20 on Tuesday. And I've left a little time to resume Krishna book. So it's been a while, and I must admit I forgot what pastime we're in. But I'm sure that we can pick that up, hopefully. Okay. Krishna book. Okay, so you know where we are. Govardhan Leela. We are Govardhan Leela. So what's happening is we're in the middle of the rainfall. Rainfall is falling. Indra has lost it, become angry. The situation is very dangerous, especially for the animals. The rainfall was accompanied by great winds, and every living creature in Vrindavan began to tremble from the severe cold. It also mentions that big blocks of ice, hail. It's in the Krishna book. You'll find a chapter called "Wonderful Krishna." After the whole thing is finished, I think after the prayers of Surabhi and Indra, there's a little chapter called Wonderful Krishna, in which the coward men approached Nanda and said, "Really? Who is this boy?" On the one hand, he's just 7 years old, and the other hand, he holds up Govardhan like he said, like. And they recount, they review Krishna's all these wonderful pastimes, and then at the end of the Wonderful Krishna chapter, there's a verse that I memorized. It's a summary of the Vrindavan Leela, of the Govardhan Leela, and so it's described there. What is it? How's it go? Deve varshiti yagya viplava dasha vadrashma varshanilai. So Vajra, that's the thunder. Ashma varsha, literally stone rain. That's the hailstones. You see? So hailstones are coming, huge hailstones. I mean, can you imagine how dangerous that is? Plus all this water, just like in Houston, And so it says, and no one could tell the low areas from the high. In other words, everything was filling in with water. It was tremendously dangerous. So that's what it says here. Without cessation, pouring water as thick as pillars, without cessation, the clouds gradually filled all the lands in Vrindavan with water, and there was no visible distinction between higher and lower land. Prabhupada translates right here. Situation is very dangerous, especially for the animals. The rainfall was accompanied by great winds, and every living creature in Vrindavan began to tremble from the severe cold. Unable to find any source of deliverance, they all approached Govinda to take shelter at his lotus feet. The cows especially, being much aggrieved from the heavy rain, bowed down their heads, taking their calves underneath their bodies. They approached the Lord to take shelter of his lotus feet. At that time, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan began to pray to Krishna, "Dear Krishna, you are all-powerful. You are also very affectionate to your devotees. Now please protect us, who have been much harassed by angry Indra." Upon hearing their prayer, Krishna could understand that Indra, being bereft of his sacrificial honor, was pouring down rain that was accompanied by heavy pieces of ice and strong winds, although all this was out of season. Krishna understood that this was a deliberate exhibition of anger by Indra. He therefore concluded, quote, "This demigod who thinks himself supreme has shown his great power, but I shall answer him according to my position, and I shall teach him that he is not autonomous in managing universal affairs. I am the Supreme Lord over all, and I shall thus take away his false prestige, which has arisen from his power. The demigods are my devotees, and therefore it is not possible for them to forget my supremacy. But somehow or other he has become puffed up with material power, and thus is now maddened. I shall act in such a way as to relieve him of this false prestige. I shall give protection to my pure devotees in Vrindavan, who are at present completely dependent on my mercy, and whom I have taken completely under my protection. I must save them by my mystic power. Thinking in this way, Lord Krishna immediately picked up Govardhan Hill with one hand, exactly as a child picks up a mushroom from the ground. Called Uchilindra. Uchilindra is a mushroom. That's in this verse also, I mentioned. Thus he exhibited his transcendental pastime of lifting Govardhan Hill. Lord Krishna then addressed his devotees. My dear brothers, my dear father, my dear inhabitants of Vrindavan, you can now safely enter under the umbrella of Govardhan Hill, which I have just lifted. Do not be afraid of the hill and think that it will fall from my hand. You have been too much afflicted from the heavy rain and strong wind. Therefore I have lifted this hill, which will protect you exactly like a huge umbrella. I think this is a proper arrangement to relieve you of your immediate distress. Be happy along with your animals underneath this great umbrella. Close quote. Being assured by Krishna, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan entered beneath the great hill along with their property and animals. Oops, sorry. Come on. Animals, and they all appeared to be safe. The inhabitants of Vrindavan and their animals remained there for 1 week without being disturbed by hunger, thirst, or any other discomforts. They were simply astonished to see how Krishna was holding up the mountain with the little finger of his left hand. Seeing the extraordinary mystic power of Krishna, Indra, the king of heaven, was, this is a joke, Prabhupada puts a joke right in here. Indra was thunderstruck and baffled in his determination. You remember that? I remember when I first read that. It's very clever. He immediately called for all the clouds and asked them to desist. When the sky became completely cleared of all clouds and there was a sunrise again, the strong wind stopped. At that time Krishna, known now as the lifter of Govardhan, said, My dear coward men, now you can leave and take your wives, children, cows, and valuables, because everything is ended. The inundation has gone down, along with the swelling waters of the river. And now, my little poem. When Krishna stopped King Indra's sacrifice, that monarch of the heavens threw a fit. Those cowards took that foolish boy's advice. Such insolence I never shall permit. So Indra sent the clouds of devastation to pour down catastrophic hail and rain, with thunder, lightning, winds without cessation. The cowards called to Krishna in their pain. To show his coward friends his deepest love and crush King Indra's pride for his own good, Shri Krishna lifted Govardhan above and saved his friends while neath the hill they stood. Hari Bol. So, my dear coward men, now you can leave, take your wives, children, cows, valuables, because everything is ended. The inundation has gone down, along with the swelling waters of the river. All the men loaded their valuables on carts and slowly left with their cows and other paraphernalia. After they had cleared out everything, Krishna very slowly replaced Govardhan Hill in exactly the same position it had been before. When everything was done, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan approached Krishna with feelings of love and embraced him with great ecstasy. The gopis, being naturally very affectionate to Krishna, began to offer him yogurt mixed with their tears. And they poured incessant blessings upon him. Mother Yashoda, Mother Rohini, Nanda and Balaram, who is the strongest of the strong, embraced Krishna one after another, and from spontaneous feelings of affection, blessed him over and over again. In the heavens, various demigods from different planetary systems like Siddhaloka, Gandharvaloka, and Charanaloka also began to show their complete satisfaction. They poured showers of flowers on the surface of the earth and sounded different conch shells. There was the beating of drums, and being inspired by godly feelings, the residents of Gandharvaloka began to play on their tambours to please the Lord. After this incident, the Lord, surrounded by his dear friends and the animals, returned to his home. As usual, the gopis began to chant the glorious pastimes of Lord Krishna with great feeling, for they were chanting from the heart. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 25th chapter of Krishna, devastating rainfall in Vrindavan. Have a little time, let's go on. Chapter 26, this is wonderful Krishna. It's before the prayers of Surabhi and Indra. Without understanding the intricacies of Krishna, and without knowing his uncommon spiritual opulences, the innocent cowherd boys and men of Vrindavan began to discuss the wonderful activities of Krishna, which surpassed the activities of all men. One of them said, "My dear friends, considering his wonderful activities, how is it possible that such an uncommon boy would come and live with us in Vrindavan? It is really not possible. Just imagine, he is now only 7 years old. How is it possible for him to lift Govardhan Hill in one hand and hold it up just as the king of elephants holds a lotus flower? To lift a lotus flower is a most insignificant thing for an elephant, and similarly Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill without exertion." Then they start reviewing. When he was simply a small baby and could not even see properly, he killed a great demon, Putana. While sucking her breast, he also sucked out her life air. Krishna killed the Putana demon exactly as eternal time kills a living creature in due course. When he was only 3 months old, he was sleeping beneath a hand-driven cart. Being hungry for his mother's breast, he began to cry and throw his legs upward. And from the kicking of his small feet, the cart immediately broke apart and fell to pieces. When he was only 1 year old, he was carried away by the Trinavarta demon, disguised as a whirlwind, and although he was taken very high in the sky, he simply hung on the neck of the demon and forced him to fall from the sky and immediately die. Once, his mother, being disturbed by his stealing butter, tied him to a wooden mortar, and the child pulled it toward a pair of trees known as Yamalarjan, and caused them to fall. Once, when he was engaged in tending the calves in the forest along with his elder brother Balaram, a demon named Bakasura appeared, and Krishna at once bifurcated the demon's beak. When the demon known as Vatsasura entered among the calves tended by Krishna with a desire to kill him, Krishna immediately detected the demon, killed him, and threw him into a tree. When Krishna, along with his brother Balaram, entered the Talavan forest, the demon known as Dhenukasura, in the shape of an ass, donkey, attacked them and was immediately killed by Balaram, who caught his hind legs and threw him into a palm tree. Although the Dhenukasura demon was assisted by his cohorts, also in the shape of asses, all were killed, and the Talavan forest was then opened for the use of the animals and inhabitants of Braj. When Palambasura entered among Krishna's cowherd boyfriends, Krishna caused him to be killed by Balaram. Thereafter, Krishna saved his friends and cows from a severe forest fire, and he chastised the Kaliya serpent in the lake of the Yamuna river and forced him to leave the vicinity of the Yamuna. He thereby made the water of the Yamuna poisonless. Close quote. Another friend of Nanda said, quote, "My dear Nanda, we don't know why we are so attracted by your son Krishna. We want to forget him, but this is impossible. Why are we so naturally affectionate toward him? Just imagine how wonderful it is. On one hand, he is a boy only 7 years old." What did I do? On one hand, he is only a boy of 7 years, and on the other hand, there is a huge hill like Govardhan Hill, and he lifted it so easily. "O Nanda, we are now in great doubt. Your son Krishna must be one of the demigods. He's not at all an ordinary boy. Maybe he's the supreme personality of Godhead." On hearing the praises of the cowherd men in Braj, King Nanda said, "My dear friends, in reply to you I can simply present the statements of Garga Muni so that your doubts may be cleared. When he came to perform the name-giving ceremony, he said that this boy descends in different periods of time." Now he's quoting word by word, syllable by syllable, Garga Muni's statement from the previous chapter. He said that this boy descends in different periods of time in different colors, and that this time he's appeared in Vrindavan in a blackish color known as Krishna. Previously he had a white color, then a red color, then a yellow color. He also said this boy was once the son of Vasudeva, and everyone knows who knows of his previous birth calls him Vasudeva. Actually, he said that my son has many varieties of names according to his different qualities and activities. Garga Muni assured me that this boy would be all auspicious for my family and that he would be able to give transcendental blissful pleasure to all the cowherd men and cows in Vrindavan. And we're going to have to stop there, and we'll pick that up on Tuesday. Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada. No, Mondays go with is Prabhupada's appearance, disappearance day, ceremony. So we won't. You should be here for that, but it won't be. Won't be.
Yes, 11 is one of my
I was like, this is the best one.
Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nidina Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Bhagavad Ashtotra Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavanda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Shri Bhakti Krishna Chaitanya Bhagavan Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasali Gaur ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shantan Radhakun Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham ki jai. Jagannath Dham ki jai. Ganga Mani ki jai. Yamuna Mani ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Pentavot Subhishan ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveda Bhakti ki jai. All glory to the Son of the Lord. All glory to the Son of the Lord. All glory to the Son of the Lord. All glory to Sri Vishnu and Gauranga. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. In the bowl.
Take some. It's the Wednesday feast. Why just Sunday? That's cookies. There you go. And you got a spoon for the fork. And cup for the milk. Now what do we do? We have no sweet for you. You okay? Give you a little touch? Or Puri fed? Are you good? We can give you another. There it is. I didn't bring my beads. I have to take this out before you consulted me. I could chant around. Maybe I'll use the beads. What happened to all the others? Distributed? Oh. They should be here. How do you